I remember when we first got into this, we actually paid attention to Grant Cardone a little bit. I think Joshua even got his free book, and we're like, this guy was like onto something.
I still get text messages from Grant to this day.
Yeah, you should unsubscribe. You probably can't.
No, you can't.
Honestly.
No, you can't.
It's just impossible.
You can never unsubscribe to Grant Cardone.
Welcome to the Real OShow. I'm Zachary. Joining me as always is my partner in crime, my brother Joshua.
And on today's episode, we talk about Zachary's car being broken into, how much money March Madness makes, Grant Cardone suing Gary Brecka, and a lot more. Enjoy. They paper getters, they want money more than they want fame shit. I swear we go so hard, we on A-list. I see my niggas prevailing. We going hard for the hand. We gonna stack that we jaded.
This is a great interview. They doing their thing.
All right, I want to start today's show off with a little story time. So Zachary has been in Miami for the last week. I was responsible for his car. Now, if you know anything about Jersey City, New York City, the street cleaners are relentless. They come 4 days a week. Think about that. 4 fucking days a week. It's
Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
So
you get an off day Wednesday.
It's absurd. It's unnecessary. So I was responsible for moving Zachary's car, which is great because I use it all the time. I, on Monday, parked his car on the side of the street. Thought I had locked it. Would have bet my life that I locked this fucking car door. I go to then move his car 2 days later because I parked it on Monday. I parked on the right side, so I'd have to move it till Wednesday. I go into the car on Wednesday. This motherfucker's been ransacked. Ransacked.
I'm confused, Joshua. So you pulled the car into the driveway, and then a day later...
No, it never reached the driveway. It never reached the driveway.
So when you got in the car to move it, it was ransacked.
It was ransacked.
Got it.
So how it happened was we have a driveway where I was going to park the car, but it's gated. I didn't get to do that because we had painters at our house. So the painters had parked their car there. So I was like, fuck it. I'm just going to park it on the side of the street. Now, I, again, would have bet my life that I locked this fucking car. I clearly did not. I go there on Wednesday. I got papers. I'm like, did I leave this fucking car just a wreck? I'm like, there's no way. I'm looking everywhere. Bro, papers everywhere. Thank God Zachary has nothing in his car. Dude, the thief was like, this broke motherfucker.
Well, I had a dummy wallet in there that had some like dumb shit. I'm not even quite sure what was in the wallet. But he took the wallet and my knife that was in there, actually. And another funny story to add a caveat to my car getting run through and possibly shit stolen, but I don't quite know what got stolen yet. But I went through airport security with a knife in my backpack. Yeah.
I mean,
fun fact.
Listen, airport security, I go to the airport all the time, so I've just realized this now. Everyone who works in an airport, everyone who works in an airport is fatigued. No one gives a fuck, bro. You can bring weed through there. You can bring whatever through there. One thing they will stop you with, though, I bought like gold and silver times, and I've like sent it to Michigan, went to Michigan to pick it up, then flew home with it. They will stop you 10 out of 10 times.
No, they took my knife. They took it. I didn't even realize they pulled my bag over. I'm like, oh, it must be, like my toiletries, toothpaste, whatever, my cologne, all that. He's like, nah, man, you got a knife in here. And I was like, oh, shit. Because I keep a knife in there. Like, if I'm ever walking late in the city, like, I'll stab a motherfucker.
Nah, dude, that's crazy.
What? It's crazy to have a knife?
No, it's just crazy that you would put that in your backpack.
But it's in my backpack. So if I'm carrying around it, leaving work late, I got it.
But long story short, the car that Zachary has been shot at since we've been here and has now been robbed. So... it's really on it. It's like it's really lived a full life.
Yeah,
here.
It's getting a lot of character than it would in Saline, Michigan. That's for sure.
I won't lie to you. Like breaking into cars though isn't like some crazy shit, bro. When we were like kids, people used to do that stuff. Like teenagers do that.
We used to do it a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah. Anyways, that's always fun. Thank God I didn't have anything in it, but.
Yeah, I would have to replace it. I mean, hey, they didn't steal his lifting shoes. This motherfucker's got lifting shoes. This guy was like, fuck this shit.
Yeah. I mean, those are $200 lifting shoes, though.
I know.
You should have taken the shoes.
I was worried about that because I was like, fuck, I'm going to have to buy this guy new lifting shoes. I was like, fuck. Because those aren't cheap. Like, lifting shoes are not cheap.
They're expensive.
And I was like, that sucks.
He took everything that didn't matter.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Motherfucker was looking through receipts. Like, what the fuck are you, like, what an idiot. Bro.
I don't know. I truly don't even know what was taken, to be honest. But regardless, It's March. It's March Madness. It's probably why he was so excited and doing that and going through people's cars is, the NCAA tournament's got people acting
You need
out.
money to gamble. I want to gamble. I have this big theory right now. I'm like, the women's bracket might be the arbitrage of gambling because there's rarely upsets on the women's side. Like I was telling people today at the office, I was like, man, my women's brackets always do way better than the men's brackets because the women's brackets do have a little bit of upsets, but it's not like on the men's side.
Yeah, but gambling on women's is the money lines are much more like bigger. Like they're going to be minus 400 and 500 and 600.
So are they on Stoots? Like when you look at a 1 seed versus a 16 seed or 2 versus 5, even some of
you're
those
not going
like
to make money on those. The money's made in like the 13 versus 5 and the
there's a lot of
12 versus
statistics.
4.
There's a lot of statistics with like 2 seeds upsetting 15 or 15 seeds upsetting 2 seeds.
Yeah.
And then there's that other, the whatever and the 3 seeds and the 4 seeds. So it's like there are a couple of those. So it's like I wonder if I just bet the underdog on a few of those, would a few of them hit? And what would be the numbers on those?
Who do you have winning your men's bracket? Duke.
I think my
Interesting.
my final 4, and again, this is off the top of my dome, but I think I got Florida, Duke, Michigan State, and Houston. And I have Duke and Florida going to the finals.
I have Florida winning mine.
Florida's very good.
I
mean,
definitely don't have Duke in the Final Four. I have Michigan State in the Final Four. I think I have Florida beating Michigan State in the Final Four.
Same. I think
I
a
don't
lot
quite
of
know my
people-
bracket. I think I have Houston also in the Final Four.
Houston's pretty good. I think that like Auburn is a team that could win it all, or they could shit the bed. Like they were arguably the best team in the country for half the year. As soon as they sealed the SEC tournament, they shat their pants the rest of the year. Like they literally, there's an announcer who literally said when they won the SEC tournament, he was like, they could lose every game the rest of the year. They'll still be a 1 seed. They almost lost every game from that point on, and we're still a 1 seed, which is kind of nuts.
Yeah, I mean, I think about that all the time with the regular season and the tournament. We put so much weight on the tournament, but is it better to be the best team for 4 days, or was it better to be the best team all year? I think it's more impressive to be all year than a 4-day stretch because
Sure.
those tournaments are 4 days.
Yeah.
Like who's the hottest team wins.
But
that
there
doesn't
is
mean
something
the best
to
team wins.
There is something to the one and done and having the ability to get through it.
Well, it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's
I
exciting.
don't know. I'm actually I'm excited to watch a little bit of basketball because day 1 was today, technically, of like the real tournament. Or I guess when we're recording this, so it'd be day 2 when this drops. I think March is one of those things where it's like it's one of the few moments where the whole world, or at least the whole America, tunes in for. You
Oh my
might not watch
goodness.
any basketball at all, but you're like, I still filled out a bracket. Like everyone does it. It's the only thing where you work at a corporate place. They're like, hey, fill out a bracket to win a fucking free trip to blank and blank. Like that's the only thing. They don't do it for the Super Bowl. They don't do it for fucking football. They don't do it for anything. They do it for March Madness. It's that one thing.
It's definitely like the third biggest sporting revenue driver. It has to be. And that's just me guessing. I'm thinking like Super Bowl. I'm thinking college football playoffs and the national championship. Then I'm thinking March Madness for college basketball. It has to be the third thing.
I think March Madness is bigger than the college football playoff, personally.
College football playoff.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
no way.
I personally think it is.
No way.
There's just more teams.
But the football contracts
more-
are so much bigger, Joshua.
But it doesn't
so
matter.
Much bigger.
There's just way more games. Way more games. You have 64 teams plus playing games.
Yeah, listen.
It's a whole month.
But the excitement, you feel it. But like you also have to understand, in like 4 days, the hype of March Madness is kind of over. There's always like that little bit of a Cinderella team, but it's like the best teams are winning now. The most exciting part is round 1 and 2 of the tournament. Then it dives down.
Here's my
100%.
argument. March Madness ain't trying to copy college football. College football is trying to copy March Madness. That's why I think that March Madness is bigger.
But I didn't say it's not the most exciting. It is the most exciting. What I'm saying, it's probably the third biggest revenue driver of all the sporting events possible. The Super Bowl, college football, national championship, and playoff. Then it's probably March Madness.
I just think it's hard. I think it's hard to gauge because you got 12 teams and you have 64. Just the sheer amount of games makes it me think that there's just more revenue being driven. It might be more local, where the CFP is more national, but I'm telling you, I think March Madness has the recipe of like everyone's trying to copy that. Everyone's trying to get that March Madness hype to it. And I mean, you've even seen like the PFL, the Fighting League, they have like a March Madness bracket where you start off at like a whatever seed you're placed, and then you like bracket down all the way to the final, and if you win, you get the belt and like $1 million. So there's definitely something to it.
Yeah, I want to check to see how much the college football playoff made this last year. They made, shout out ChatGPT, they made approximately $470 million.
I bet you.
Which is under the March Madness. But once again, March Madness is 64 teams in a whole month. The college football playoff is 3 weeks.
But that's my whole point.
And way less games.
Look at the college football playoff, right? The 4 games, it was 2 weeks. When they did the 12 team, look how far it stretched into it. Like, bro, it was way too far. We were like, bro, college football's still going on. Like it was to that point. And honestly, March Madness does do that. When it's like April 10th and it's the national championship game, it's like, bro, it's not March no more. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I'm saying is the excitement of March Madness does fade fast. Like it's this opening weekend. It's this Thursday through Sunday window that it's the biggest moment. And then it does kind of dive off because the best teams start to win. Less teams are in it.
See, I disagree.
The excitement's
I don't
gone.
think it's the big teams. I actually think the Cinderella stories actually hurt March Madness. So when there's a Cinderella story, they try to put all this narrative behind it, like, oh, watch this team. But if you actually look at the product that's put out, rarely does a Cinderella team actually hold that weight. They eventually will win 1 game, maybe 2 games, but then they get to the 3rd game, they get blown the fuck out. Like, that's not, no one cares when it's Oakland versus Kentucky. You know what I mean? Like, truthfully, and it's in the 3rd round, no one cares. When it's 1st round, 2nd round, maybe.
I would say
but
that's
after
what
that,
makes March Madness March Madness. Is the 14th seed out of nowhere with a bunch of nobodies and a bunch of kids that never got recruited win games and are then have a chance to keep winning.
But they really only want them to win 1 or 2 games. It's not good for fucking March Madness for them to make the Final Four and get blown out. Like, that's not.
Well, they never want to blow
brand.
out, but a Cinderella story makes people want to watch.
To the Sweet 16. They want a Cinderella story to the Sweet 16, and then that Cinderella dies, and then they actually have some name brand. They want blue blood. Like, if March Madness could paint their picture, it'd be like Duke, UConn, Kansas, and some other team. You know what I mean? It would be like only blue bloods there, and people would be like, fuck the blue bloods, and then be like, the highest ratings ever, the most money gambled in history of a college basketball game. Like, that's what it is. People bitch about seeing name brand teams, but then at the end of the day, when they see a non-name brand team, they're like, well, I don't even want to watch anymore. So it's give or take.
You were looking at something the other day. Rick Pitino was talking about the Big East is going to take over basketball. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, this is
bit?
very interesting. So I was listening to Rick Pitino on Pat McAfee's show, and he was talking about how the new NIL agreement for next year it's a shared revenue. So each school gets like $22.5 million. I could be off on that number, but it's around that. $22.5 million.
Sounds right.
They have to split it with all the sports. So if you're in the Big Ten, in the SEC, 70% of that's going to the football team. At least 70% of it. So then what? The basketball team gets 20%, and then 10% goes to the rest of the school. Like, that's really the revenue share probably. So it's like, now these teams that were able to get X amount, they were allowed to spend whatever their boosters had, right? And they only have 12 guys. So it's easy to pay 5 of them a lot of money. Now you're sharing that with 20%. You're only getting 20% of the pie, where the Big East is going to thrive. They don't got football. None of those schools are like, we're a football school. UConn is a basketball school.
Well, Big East doesn't have a football conference. They all play in different conferences.
But that's my point, right? It also, their teams are irrelevant, right?
Yeah,
like,
of course,
UConn is independent for football. Like, they're nobodies, right? And so I think that's where like the St. John's and all these other schools are going to thrive. They're going to be like, we got $22 million. We're going to spend 70% of that for our basketball
But there's
team.
no way the Big East is getting $22 million.
Everyone gets the same amount.
It's the same amount,
Yes.
or is it by conference? And then
No, it's same amount. So it's each
Interesting.
school gets the same amount. But now a Mountain West school is going to be like, we are going to pay for that. But like Rick Pitino said, he has 2 boosters that are like, Rick, whatever you need, we're signing the check. You just tell us what you need.
Yeah, but with this revenue share, does it eliminate that? I think that's why they're doing it, is to eliminate that.
No. See, this is how I think these big SEC schools are going to backdoor it, is they're then going to just start paying. It's just going to happen again where kids get paid under the table. Hey, your NIL will be this much, but you're also going to do this one thing for our one booster this one time, and you're going to get $1 million check. That's what it's going to be. It's always going to have this component. They let Pandora out of the box. You're not putting it back in now, right? And there has to be some guidelines, but I just think for the now, as these schools are going to be like towing the lines of what's legal, what's not legal. I think the Big East is going to be like the SEC this year, SEC has 14 teams in the March Madness this year. The Big East is going to have like 9, because what's going to happen is there's going to be other conferences that are like, we don't really have a good football. Let's just join the Big East. We're going to have that brand name. They're going to expand the Big East to more basketball schools, and it's just going to become a basketball powerhouse. Like Alabama this year and all the like SEC having all these big schools, they're not going to be able to compete when their football team takes 70% of the revenue. There's just no way.
Yeah, but then it goes into the point you just said where it's just going to be all under the fucking table. So they're still going to be able to compete.
I think
people want to go to Alabama for the name brand. People don't really give a fuck about going to a Big East school
but
for the most part. Basketball might be different, but still.
For the stars, right? The stars is always going to be the back door. But for the 80-90% of the kids, they ain't going to get that. So it's just you're going to have to stand in line. And I think that's the difference is by putting a cap, which is a salary cap, there's always going to be that extra person, you know. Patrick Mahomes getting fucking deals out the ass outside of his $300 million contract, right? So it's like the best players are going to get paid regardless. And the best players on the basketball team are always going to get paid regardless on the back door. But the average guy ain't going to get that. And I think that's the difference of what this new thing is, where the average guy right now is getting paid out the ass. He's getting paid out the ass.
You're saying the average player is getting paid out the ass?
Like, bro, if you're just a shitty fucking quarterback who's a starter on a team, bro, you can make $1 million, $2 million to go to another team. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's gonna change when the money starts getting tight. They're not gonna pay Jimmy from Iowa to come over to fucking Alabama to play for $3 million. That's not gonna happen. The Carson Becks of the world are just gonna be like, hey, buddy, pack it up. We'll see you later. We're not gonna pay you $10 million. Like that type of shit ain't gonna happen. So that's where I think the salary cap does help, right?
No, there needs to be a salary cap for sure. Because then you have teams like Texas Tech who are literally paying. They have like an $8 million payroll for football this next year.
8?
80.
Oh my! Bro, just think about that.
It's like 50. I don't want to hold on. Let me check. I'm pretty sure it's 80 million.
But still, regardless, right? The NFL, right? The NFL, their salary cap is like $250 million this year. College should be nowhere near that. It should be a fucking fraction of it. It should be a fraction. Now, if you want to do some sort of split with revenue share where they get their own players agreement or their own players association where they want to be like, hey, if we get more money on the back end, if we keep growing the brand, maybe you can do some sort of split with that. But you're just not going to convince me that these college football players should be making $10, $15 million in college. It's just not a thing.
It should not be a thing. Carson Beck will not play in the NFL. And this motherfucker is signing like second string 12-year NFL vet deals.
I was just thinking about this the other day, right? College women basketball players. We were just talking about the March Madness for women's. These women right now, there's a girl, I forget her name, little white girl on UConn. Stud, right?
Yeah.
I forget her name.
Paige or something?
Paige something. I forget her name. I'm sorry that I fucked up your name. She is going to take a massive pay cut next year when she has to go to the WNBA. Just think about that. These girls that are playing college, why would you even want to go? I'd be like, can I get a 6th year, 5th, 7th year? Because you're making 10, 20x what you're going to go into. And there's just nothing they can do about it. There's nothing you can do about it. These brands, like Iowa women's basketball has a bigger brand than any fucking professional team. The South Carolina women's basketball team has a bigger brand than any WNBA team. The UConn's women's team has a bigger brand than any WNBA team. So it's like they have the money to pay these girls. WNBA teams don't.
I fully agree. And I think that's just the rise of college sports where unless it's the NFL or the NBA, it's tough to compete. It's really tough to compete. But the NFL is even lacking because, like we just talked about, Carson Beck, that motherfucker would never play in the NFL, even if he would be on like vet minimum, would not be making nearly as much money as he is right now. But college football has just made that come true where it's like, why wouldn't you play fucking 7-8 years in goddamn college? There's a tight end on Miami where he was going into like his 10th year, and it's like, what the fuck is going on?
If you know you're not going to go to the next level, you should milk college for as long as you can in D1 because you're never going to make that amount of money ever again, bro. We were talking about some quarterbacks in the NCAA this year. They were making $500,000, and they're just trash-ass quarterbacks. And I was like, man, this guy's really got to soak this in. He's never going to make this much money ever again. Like him as a 22-year-old is going to make the most money he's ever going to make unless he's like turns out to be some fucking brainiac.
Which isn't bad either. But I'm just saying, like, that is a lot of fucking money, and a lot of these guys are never going to get that amount of money ever again. I want to do a hard pivot here because me and Joshua have done now multiple 3-day long plus fasts, and we were inspired by this guy named Gary Brecka. If you haven't checked out our vlog, go check it out. We've done it, 2-3 times now, Joshua?
3 times.
3 times. But he is really getting some backlash and pretty much being sued by Grant Cardone, who they used to partner up. Gary Brecka and Grant Cardone were in business together for 10 Times Health. Obviously, you could have your opinion about Grant Cardone or even Gary Brecka. We love Gary. We think he's smart. We believe in what he says. We've done what he said. We feel it. We think it works. But Joshua, have you looked at all into like the lawsuit and what's going on?
I don't know any of the details. I mean, I've seen like the beef. Like I sent you a tweet the other day about Grant Cardone being like, I'm going to expose everything and like all this, which in the tweet, he didn't expose anything other than like throw shots at Gary, like you're a degenerate gambler and like all these weird things that had nothing to do with the science of it. Like, yeah, bro, guess what? I bet if we open up anybody's closet, you're going to see some dark shit. So I was like, I don't know. I don't really know any of the details of or why they're even suing each other.
I'm going to go through Grant suing Gary because Gary's just suing Grant for essentially like a smear campaign, like 10,000 foot view, smear campaign, making him look bad. But Grant is suing Gary Brecka in The Ultimate Human, which is his own personal brand, for when he was with 10 Times Health, he was using resources to essentially build up his own personal brand. AK, everybody does that,
Everyone
pretty much.
does that.
But when you're a billionaire, this is what you can go after. And was building up a competing business, which obviously he wasn't allowed to with the NDA and whatever, using company resources for personal gain, kind of touched on that, and essentially redirecting business from 10 Times Health into The Ultimate Human, which then he eventually broke away from. So it'll be very, very interesting how this plays out, and obviously we'll figure out more information as it comes. But yeah, man, I remember when we first got into this, we actually paid attention to Grant Cardone a little bit. I think Joshua even got his free book, and we're like, oh, this guy was onto something.
I still get text messages from Grant to this day.
Yeah, you should just
being like,
yeah, you should unsubscribe.
It's
You probably can't.
No, you can't.
Honestly,
no, you can't.
He just said possible.
You can never unsubscribe to Grant Cardone.
But it was just funny that like we first fell onto him, and then we were like, this guy's a fucking fraud, and now it's coming back up with Gary Brecka. But yeah, man, it's getting to the point, man, that we've obviously been around a lot of successful people, like very, very, very wealthy people. I truly believe there's a limit of how much money you can make being a good human.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a threshold. Like at some point, you're gonna have to do some shit that is like, I'm just saying, I don't think that Grant Cardone does illegal shit technically to the law, but I'm just saying, I think Grant Cardone lives in the gray. And there's nothing against him. I've read his book. I thought it was pretty good. I think he does say some good shit. There's a reason why he's successful. He's obviously very hard worker and he knows how to fucking move the needle. But I've met a lot of very wealthy people, and something about him just gives me he's doing some shady shit.
Yeah, so for people that don't know, or even if you do know, it'd be a good refresher. What Grant Cardone essentially does is he lets non-accredited investors, God, that's a tough word, which essentially is people who make under $250,000 and less than a $1 million net worth. Yes, that is great because it allows people like me and Joshua that if we want to invest with him, we can. Now, the gray area of this is you're actually going after mostly investors that are uneducated about what they're getting into and nor want to be educated about what is going on.
Yeah, he's pretty much preying on the fact that they know nothing, but they have the money. So it's like, give me the money, I'll give you some return and make you feel good, but really I'm just leveraging all these people's money. And if shit were to hit the fan and they lost everything, it wouldn't be Grant losing everything, it would be these people losing everything. And that's where I think the line gets towed. Again, it's technically not illegal. Like, people have sued the fuck out of Grant and he's won. So it's like,
I mean, the government allows this.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like, it's not like it's a bad thing. It's just like one of those things where it's like wherever your moral compass is.
It's an ethic play.
But who am I to say, right? I'm a scumbag. I don't know. I don't know.
Whatever. But honestly, if you made it this far, drop a like, leave a comment, hit subscribe, and until next time, we'll see you.
about to get all this dough. Me and no fuck niggas know. I swear to God, we the ghosts. This ain't the story they told. Man, if you know, then you know. I never had to tell my dogs that we on rough for greatness. They paper getters, they want money more than they want fake shit.